Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful tool for figuring out how work actually gets done. It's called work sampling. We're going to uncover the huge difference between just being busy and being truly productive and see how getting that right can totally transform how a team performs.
Welcome to Bodhi Unified Flow. Our whole goal here is to take complex ideas and make them simple so you can amplify your performance. And you know what? Today's topic is the perfect example of that.
So let's kick things off with a situation that I'm sure sounds familiar. You look at your team and they seem incredibly busy, right? The calendars are just packed, there's activity everywhere, but somehow those critical deadlines are still slipping. Why on earth does this happen? Well, that is the exact problem we are going to unpack and solve today.
Here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll break down this illusion of busy. Then I'll introduce you to work sampling as our main tool. From there, we'll get really clear on the difference between efficiency and productivity. And then, most importantly, we'll look at how to turn all these insights into real, actual improvements.
By the end of our time together, you're going to have a solid framework to see right through all that busyness and start making smart, data-driven changes that will actually boost your team's output. So, let's get into it. All right, first up, let's really tackle this idea, this illusion of busy. It's a critical first step because we absolutely have to recognize that just because there's a lot of activity, it doesn't always mean there's progress. We have all been there. The energy on the team feels really high. The calendars are a sea of blue. But then you look at the progress bar for that key project, and it's barely budged. This is that classic trap of mistaking motion for genuine forward movement. We feel super productive, but the results just aren't showing up. So if feeling busy isn't a metric we can rely on, how do we get an accurate picture of what's really going on? Well, that brings us right to our main diagnostic tool, work sampling. So what is work sampling? A great way to think about it is like a political poll. You don't have to ask every single person in the country who they're voting for to get a really accurate idea of the outcome. Instead, you just strategically sample a smaller group. Well, work sampling does the exact same thing, but for time. By taking lots of random instant snapshots of what people are doing, we can build a surprisingly accurate picture of how a team's entire day is spent. And this right here, this highlights a massive shift in perspective. A traditional time study asks, how long does it take to do task X? But work sampling asks a much bigger and frankly more important question. What percentage of our day is spent on valuable work like task X versus, say, being stuck in meetings or just waiting around for materials? It's a shift from measuring the duration of a task to understanding the proportion of our time. Let's make this crystal clear. A time study, it's perfect for timing exactly how long it takes to assemble a widget on a line. But work sampling, that's what you use to discover that your team is spending 30% of their entire day just looking for the parts to build that widget. See the difference? One measures the task, the other diagnoses the whole system. Okay, so we've run our poll on the workday. We've taken our snapshots. What do the results usually tell us? That's what we're jumping into right now in section 3, categorizing time. Now, when the results come in, they often look a little something like this. And honestly, it can be pretty startling. A study might find that only 60% of the day is spent on work that directly adds value for the customer. Another 15% is on necessary support stuff, and a full quarter, 25% of the entire workday is just pure waste. Seeing that number quantified is usually a huge wake-up call. So let's quickly define these so we're all on the same page. Direct or value-added work, that's the core activity. It's what the customer's actually paying for. Indirect work is all the necessary support, like planning or prepping. And then there's waste. That's anything that eats up time but adds zero value. Think waiting, rework, or just unnecessary movement. Understanding this breakdown, especially that big slice of waste, leads us perfectly into our next key concept, efficiency, which at its heart is all about doing things right. Now, efficiency isn't just about speed, it's really a measure of performance against a standard. The whole goal is to use the absolute minimum resources needed to get the job done correctly. So when you start to attack that 25% of waste we just saw, you are directly improving your efficiency. But here's the thing, efficiency is only half the story. Because once you start doing things right, you unlock the ability to do more things. And this brings us right to section 5, productivity. This table just nails the crucial difference. Efficiency is all about quality and process. It's about doing things right. Productivity is about volume and quantity. It's about doing more things. And the example makes it unforgettable.
A factory making 30 perfect cars an hour is efficient. A factory churning out 60 cars an hour where half of them have defects might look more productive, but its terrible inefficiency is creating massive hidden costs.
So, at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to become more productive by first becoming more efficient. So how do we actually do that? Well, it's time to turn all this data into real-world action. The path forward is actually pretty straightforward. First, you sample to get an honest baseline and see where the waste is. Second, you target the root causes. Is it a bad layout? Are materials missing? Are instructions unclear? Third, you streamline the process to get rid of those problems. And finally, you measure again to prove that your efficiency gains have turned into real, measurable productivity.
Let's look at a real-world example. So, there was this company, ABC Corp, and they were struggling. They felt busy, but performance was just flat. So they did a work sampling study, and it revealed a story we now know is all too common. Only 60% of their team's time was actually spent on value-added work. The rest was just getting lost to delays and waste.
But here's the beautiful part. Armed with this data, they could take targeted action. They didn't just tell people to work harder. They streamlined their processes to fix the root causes of the delay. And the result? A 20% increase in true productivity in just 6 months. That wasn't about working harder. It was about working smarter, all guided by objective data. All right, so let's just pull it all together. What are the key things to remember? First, being busy can be a total illusion. Second, work sampling gives you the real picture by measuring the proportion of time, not just the duration. It shows you how much time is truly spent on value-added work versus waste. And most importantly, remember that the path to higher productivity always begins by improving efficiency. So, I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Your team's time is your most valuable, most finite resource. Do you truly know, based on actual data, not just a feeling, how it's really being spent? Thank you so much for your time. All the information in this explainer was drawn from the sources you see here on the screen. We really hope this has given you a clearer understanding of work sampling and how you can use it to really boost performance.